Welcome to our final section for this unit, which focuses on the movement of energy. Our learning objectives are to explain how solar energy is acquired and transferred by living organisms, how energy and matter flow through trophic levels, and how energy decreases as it flows through an ecosystem. Energy acquisition and transfer in ecosystems begins with photosynthesis and respiration. Producers or autotrophs are organisms like plants, algae, and some bacteria that use the sun's energy to produce usable forms of energy through photosynthesis. The equation for this process is 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 6 molecules of water produce 1 molecule of glucose and 6 molecules of oxygen gas. Respiration is the process by which all organisms unlock the energy within glucose. The equation for cellular respiration is the opposite. 1 glucose molecule and 6 oxygen molecules produce 6 carbon dioxide molecules and 6 water molecules plus some energy. Together, these two processes are essential for the movement of energy within an ecosystem. Let's take a closer look at the two types of respiration. Aerobic respiration requires the presence of oxygen to break down glucose and release energy. Anaerobic respiration, however, occurs in the absence of oxygen and is a less efficient process, often performed by bacteria and other organisms in oxygen poor environments. When we talk about producers, it's important to remember that they don't all use wavelengths of light equally. Chlorophyll B is a pigment found in plants and algae, which can absorb red and blue light very well. This is because these wavelengths are the most effective for driving photosynthesis. Interestingly, blue light can penetrate deeper into water than other colors, which allows algae to perform photosynthesis at greater depths in aquatic systems. Now, we'll talk about trophic levels, which are the successive levels of organisms that consume one another. Consumers, or heterotrophs, are organisms that must obtain their energy by consuming other organisms. There are different types of consumers. Herbivores are primary consumers that eat producers. Carnivores are secondary or tertiary consumers that eat other consumers. And omnivores eat both producers and consumers. A food chain is a simple linear sequence of consumption, like grass to a rabbit to a fox. However, a more complex and realistic model is a food web, which shows how energy moves through multiple trophic levels. Within a food web, you'll find other types of organisms, including scavengers like vultures, who consume dead animals, detritivores like dung beetles, which break down dead tissues and waste products into smaller particles, and decomposers like fungi and bacteria, which convert organic matter into small elements and molecules that can be recycled back into the ecosystem. The savanna food web is a great example of how energy flows through an ecosystem. It all starts with the producers, the grasses and trees, that get their energy from the sun. Next are the primary consumers, herbivores like the giraffes and zebras, who eat the plants. They are preyed upon by the secondary consumers, such as lions and cheetahs. At the very top are the tertiary consumers, which are predators that eat other carnivores. The cycle is completed by decomposers and detritivores like fungi and dung beetles. They break down dead organisms and waste, recycling nutrients back into the soil for the producers to use all over again. Here are some examples comparing a terrestrial food chain with an aquatic food chain. Some ecosystems are more productive than others, and the amount of energy available in an ecosystem determines how much life it can support. Gross primary productivity, or GPP, is a measure of the total amount of solar energy that producers in a system capture through photosynthesis over a given amount of time. Net primary productivity, or NPP, is the energy that producers capture minus the energy that they use for respiration. NPP is the amount of energy available to the consumers in the ecosystem. It might be surprising to learn that only a tiny fraction of the sun's energy that reaches the earth is actually used by producers. 99% of the solar energy is either reflected back into space or passes right through the producers without even being absorbed. The remaining 1% of the solar energy that strikes a producer is captured through photosynthesis. We call this gross primary productivity, or GPP. But the producer can't use all of that energy for growth. About 60% of the GPP is lost to respiration, the energy that the plants need to live. The remaining 40% is what's left to support the plant's growth and reproduction. This is called the net primary productivity. The efficiency of energy transfer affects the energy present at each trophic level. Biomass is the total mass of all living matter in a specific area. A trophic pyramid is a representation of the distribution of biomass, numbers, or even energy among the trophic levels. The key concept here is the 10% rule, which states that only about 10% of the energy from one trophic level moves to the next. The rest is lost as heat. This is why there are far fewer top carnivores in an ecosystem compared to producers. Net primary productivity is a measure of the energy captured by producers that is available to the consumers in the ecosystem. It's essentially a way of measuring how productive a biome is. On land, you can see that the most productive biomes are located in the tropics, where high temperatures and ample precipitation lead to incredibly high productivity in tropical and temperate forests. On the other hand, a lack of water makes the deserts the least productive terrestrial biomes. In the ocean, the most productive areas are along the coastlines in places like coral reefs and salt marshes because these areas are rich in nutrients. The open ocean away from the coastlines is much less productive and is often referred to as a biological desert due to a lack of nutrients. Thanks for tuning into our videos. This is a wrap for Unit 1. Thanks again.